Yeah, we're talking to Stephen Shellen, and he's had his own experiences, shall we say. Very, very well. I think the fact that you had your experiences so long ago, when starting in the 90s, when people weren't talking about such things, they weren't talking about targeted individuals, they weren't talking about people being stalked or followed or being having things moved around in their hotel room or that sort of thing. For those that don't know about that bit, we've sort of gone over it, but basically, you would be feeling like you were going crazy. Like it was the gaslighting that was being done, and to a large extent, we're seeing that being done by the deep state now. We see what's happening with these elections and this whole projection idea, and the well, there's words for it that we don't need to use on air, but definitely gaslighting would be a way of
Yeah,
putting it. And so you see that with the kids too. You see that on the other side of things. Like these guys are master manipulators, fathers
right.
of lies, right? That's where it comes from, a very satanic place. So there's no surprise to anybody that that there be lying involved. But for
Oh
the
no, yeah, it's Satan's greatest tool. It's his ability to lie, you know. And what better way to trick people than to take very young children, ritually abuse them, fracture them, have other altars inside of these children, and they'll have a surface altar that's honest or normal or whatever. And then underneath of that surface altar, they may have as many as like 100 different altars inside. And these children are worth millions and millions and millions of dollars to these spy agencies and the Nazi, whatever they are, that develop these programs with these children. So when you have assassinations and the lone gunman coming in, and like many of these people, I believe, are fractured. They're already they're ritually abused children that are now adults, and they perform in a certain way based on those altars. But that's not the real person. It might be the same boy and the same face, but there's another person in there that's been created. And this goes back years. They made the movie Sybil, which is kind of a lukewarm, film, based on this woman that just developed altered personalities. Well, it's so much more sophisticated than that. Spies can be, or assassins. And I believe my ex-wife was an assassin as well. And spies, they don't have to look like 350 pounds of solid muscle. They can be this really cool kid that seems really like, hey, really laid back. Well, they love little kids like that because those kids, when they get older, you're never ever going to suspect them of being capable of slitting your throat in the middle of the night, right? You're just gonna, you're gonna take it. You're gonna take it on a surface level. It's not this 350-pound muscle bound guy. It's this 140-pound Baba Cool, hippie kid that's been programmed, and he's got a killer in him. But the general public doesn't understand that.
Yet, having said that, if you're watching what George Webb has to say, you would see that someone like Cesar Sayak, is that his last name? He's got so many different last names that the guy who they say was threatening various people with his so-called bombs. All these. What I think is that we have a whole world of people that are out there doing the bidding of. Their masters, whether
Right.
they've been sucked in by the MSN, whether they're in the Monarch program, whether
Yeah.
they're Satanists per se. I mean, the people at the top of, the very fact that people are still watching MSM tells me that they are very easily hypnotized. You know, it,
Right.
that there are most of the people in the world that are going along with these stories are not asking questions. They're still watching football today. It's like
Right.
it's Sunday. We were watching football. So it's like, yeah, it's like
I'm
that's
I'm even guilty of that. I watched football today.
Yeah. Well, no, there's nothing at all wrong with any of this stuff. If you want to watch football or read mystery novels or whatever you want to do, I think the difference is that when you're awake, when you have had these experiences, those things kind of take a back seat. I mean, you
Yeah.
probably wouldn't have been watching football when you're in the middle of having people rearranging your
Yeah.
room.
No, no, no,
Yeah. So
no,
I want to let people
no.
know I'm talking to Stephen Shellen. It's in the description of we're actually doing a YouTube live version of this, but we're also going to do it for the radio show tomorrow. I'll probably edit it down to its nugget because it's going to be an hour. But we're just talking a little bit about his background because it ties in a lot with some of the things that people are discussing around. Pizzagate now has such a weird connotation, but let's just say when we see people that have an agenda and they're doing things that are evil, I'll call it by what I think it is. We can, or when we see people lying, or when we see people trying to gaslight one another. We're seeing some of the things that you've experienced over the last 25 years. I'm going to say 25 years.
23 years. Yeah.
Okay. So just so that people who may just be tuning in, because I'm doing a live stream, there's a few people listening in, so that they know you were a Hollywood actor. We know each other from when you were just a cute little kid. We were both so cute, weren't we? When we were just little innocent kids, and we saw
Yeah.
Stephen going off to do his Calvin Klein underpants commercials. I'm sorry, I just have to say that. It's just I think it's funny because we thought it was so cute. But he cut a fine figure in a pair of undies, and we saw him on billboards. And we'd go, hey, that's Stephen. Wow, that's very cool. So I sort of saw you going through all of these different transitions to the point where you were then a Hollywood actor. You were in A River Runs Through It. You played the brother-in-law of the jerk. You played the jerk. Let's call a spade a
Yeah.
spade. But
I
I'm sure
played.
he had redeeming qualities, wouldn't you say? If you were to do a character study, you go, well, the poor guy, he was really, he was
He
bugged
was
as a kid.
hopelessly insecure and he's lied and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So he had a lot of the features of some of these people that can go the wrong way. So tell people just a little bit about what things were like for you in Hollywood. You were kind of being feted, and you were being groomed, and you worked with Brad Pitt, and you worked with Robert Redford. I can say this, but you can actually say it better.
Oh, I don't know if I can say it better because in retrospect, I think, God, was I ever naive? Like, I was not an angel. I certainly, I was a bit of a wild man, and I made mistakes along the way. I was really committed to my acting, especially because I'd been a male model when I was 20 and 21 in Vancouver, then London, England, and then I was a Ford model. So when I got out to Los Angeles around 23 years old, I really tried to, shed that skin. I wouldn't say ashamed, but I didn't want to have any connection to this modeling thing I'd done, which is in retrospect, I'm thinking, oh, who cares? That's what I did. I should be proud of what I did. I'm going to Milan and, Paris and, all the stuff I did and living in London. But, I really wanted to be a good actor. And I went to Peggy Fury's and she coached people like Sean Penn and Nicolas Cage. And I really thought, just like an athlete would think, if you work hard, you get rewarded. And so I worked very hard, on my acting craft, and I was like over the top committed. Like if I did a Tennessee Williams play, a scene from a Tennessee Williams play, I would, on the weekend, I would drive to Oklahoma to do research to get under the skin of this character that Tennessee Williams wrote. So and I slowly, no, maybe it wasn't so slow. It was sort of like passing through the eye of the needle. I sort of, I worked, and then, oh my gosh, it became effortless because I sort of, I got it, whatever that it is, and then I started getting work and I did a lot of, films and, I had a bar and I had a theater company in my bar, but I was always outspoken. I was always told that I was too honest. I was told that by managers, agents, friends that I was too honest, and that apparently was one of my downfalls.
Downfall. Yeah, it's
Yeah, they
because
didn't like that I was honest, and I didn't understand what they were saying because I wasn't trying to be honest to be a braggart or anything, but I would tell the truth, right? Somebody asked me about Demi Moore, I would tell the truth. Well, I guess if you're playing the game, you can't do that. But I didn't know that. And so I didn't have a movie star career, but I had a good working career. And then I got a very bad Canadian TV series, and I had a beautiful house, and I had mortgage payments, and I had child support from a woman I knew from a brief relationship that had my child that I got.
that you were
It was
paying.
really the lawyer fees I had to pay off.
You were
So I
paying.
took this bad TV series, and then I quit after 1 year. And I was at the time starting a company in Vancouver, a film production company, and my partner was a guy called John Hardy, and his father, according to him, ran CSIS, which is like the CIA in Canada. So I was developing all these projects. Well, one of the first things that was stolen from me were all my screenplays, all my treatments, all my development deals for my new production company. And then my partner said, "We never had a production company, and you better keep your mouth shut about your kids or you're dead." And so that was my sort of introduction to this crazy world where my children are stolen. I find out my ex wife is a prostitute. I find out she's also a call girl. I mean, for me or for Kim, there's no distinction between a call girl or a prostitute, but I think people know what what I mean when I say that. And I think that my ex-wife was involved in child trafficking, and she was a victim of being um, ritually abused from her politician father in France. But I didn't understand any of this. So when I see the Hampstead kids, I'm like, well, how can they be saying these things about their father and then at a later date be laughing and joking and be with that monster that had done these things to them? And the only way I can rationally think of it, and it's not a jump for me, it's like it's not strange for me to go, oh yeah, well those kids were ritually abused as young children. They've got alters in them, and they obviously have alters that get along very well with this monster. But
Mm-hmm.
these kids have no idea.
Right.
And I hate to say it, but my daughter exhibited those very same signs when they came to visit me in Montreal, Kim and my daughter was involved in an assassination in Corsica. And my daughter had no memory for 7 or 8 hours when she was interrogated. And I guess all I'm saying is if you're a child that's been in a program and has been ritually abused and been involved in satanic ritual abuse or anything occult like that or Luciferian, you may on the surface come across very um, normal and somewhat together, but that's a whole different person and a whole different set of personalities attached to that altar. And I don't know how else to explain it. So it's something I've had to, delve into, obviously, and try to understand. It's like, so these kids talking about their father putting the knife in their hand, and then the father putting his hand over their hand and forcing them to murder another child. And then 6 months or a year and a half later, there they are in a photo or a video with that same monster father that they were talking about. Yeah, it doesn't that is not surprising to me.
Yeah, for those that weren't tuned in at that time, we were talking about the Hampstead situation that some people may remember it. I think it was an Australian couple. I could be wrong, but definitely the kids have pretty heavy accents, and I believe it's Australian. But they're talking about some of the things in a very kind of matter of fact way, what they were expected to do. And the long and short of it is that the mother lost custody and was considered to be a complete
Mental
um,
case.
mental case, and also abusive. Like they actually
Oh
said that
yeah.
she'd put them up to it, and she'd coach them. So not only did she pay the
I got
price.
accused of that, Joni.
Well,
I
this is
got a co I got accused when I recorded my son after all this stuff started happening. I took my son to a hotel in Toronto, and I went across the street from where we were staying at the Cambridge Suites Hotel, and I bought a mini recorder thing from Japan Camera, and I went back to the room, and I tried to get my son to reiterate what he had told me, and put it on tape. And I left the room for about 2 minutes because all my stuff's getting stolen. So I'm in a state of panic and paranoia. And I go, my son could not open the door handle. And I thought, okay, he's safe in there. I went, big mistake on my part. I went, but I didn't know better. I went down to the office manager's, the manager's office where I had my paperwork. And I grabbed something and I raced back upstairs to find this very tall man with a headset in his head outside my door and burnt carbon on the floor. And I walk in the my hotel room because I'm more concerned about my son than if this guy, stole something or whatever. And I go in and my son is sobbing. He's completely undone. And I try to ask him what's going on. He keeps crying. I start looking for my children's birth certificates and a phone address book that belonged to the farm, but Florence had written all this coded message into the telephone book. So I start looking for the telephone book, and I start looking for the birth certificates, and they were in two different places, and I'd hid them very well in this hotel room. Well, in 2 minutes, they located the children's birth certificates in a pile of paperwork. They'd also located this address book in a closet underneath a pillow and a blanket. And they had time to threaten my 4-year-old son to hurt him if he talked to his daddy.
yeah, great. Yeah,
So that's how organized this thing was.
yeah. Well, and for people that have not been through this, I try to come up with something that we can relate to. And I think all of us have had a situation where somebody's lied about us, lied to us, lied about us. But I think it's worse to have someone lie about us, and particularly to our kids, right? Where I think the worst thing for me anyway is where people are alienating you from your kids, and this is all part of the deal, right? Is that we're gonna it's the divide and conquer thing, right? It's whenever I see that, I see and I call it evil. What I think it is, I call it evil
It
because
is evil.
it's a way, because if we're looking at love as being what we're aiming for, and love is about relationship and communication and all these wonderful things, then we take the dark side of that, and to me there's sort of, you're either acting you're going toward love or you're not, right? So if you're not, then you're necessarily in allowing evil into your life. I'm not suggesting that people always do it right away as they're not doing it as a way of getting somebody, but it's like they're letting that thing take over in their life that is selfish or whatever it is that's motivating them, and it turns into an evil thing, which is, now I'm going to be so selfish that I'm going to defend myself. I'm going to bring my kids along with me. I'm going to have a scorched earth mentality about getting rid of this person in my life. Whatever that is that we can relate to in our life, then just imagine that on a different scale, and you can see what Stephen's been going through, and what's really happening with this Hampstead situation.
And I
With
think also, I have to mention this. I think with the Hampstead thing, what people don't understand, this guy's like a two-bit actor guy. I mean, I've looked at his acting reel. Now, I was actually a legitimate actor. People can argue that I was a bad actor. They can say whatever they want about me, but why would A movies hire me? I mean, it doesn't make sense, right? if I was such a crappy actor, why did I do the kind of movies that I did? Like obviously I wasn't a completely crappy actor. My acting coach certainly didn't think so. And she's the one that coached Sean Penn. So I did have a career. This guy in England, he's done nothing. I've seen his reel. It's a as an actor looking at his reel, and you could appreciate this because you know that a little bit, and you certainly were are a photographer, and you did a lot with photography and stuff. So you'll be able to look at his reel and say, this is nothing. Like how could this guy he couldn't make like $500 a year from his acting career. Like he does short films, little crappy roles. Like he's done nothing. So how does this guy have all this power? Right? Well, how did my ex-wife, who was a prostitute and worked as a receptionist in a hotel in France, why was she able to uh, take money and jewelry from Arab men that came to the hotel? Why was she able to work in that hotel? Why did they not fire her ass as soon as they found out about her sleeping with hotel guests? And in particular, diplomats from Saudi Arabia and places like that. I think that French intelligence put her in that job. And then I think that somehow she got attached to me. Maybe she thought she could escape, but more than likely, Robert Lantos put her on me. So I was another project, you know what I mean? But,
Mm.
Florence was a nobody. So when all this stuff happened to me, I never thought when I was married to Florence that you're a nobody. But I mean, I was the actor. She hadn't done anything of any notoriety. She certainly wasn't the CEO of a major company. She didn't have any, what I could see, power. But she did say to me, I know very powerful people. You'll lose everything and wish you were dead. And I looked at her and I'm thinking, what? Like, what is this? Well, after 23 years, she obviously had an incredible evil support system behind her. And I think that's the same with this goof in England, the father of the Hampstead kids. He Why would this guy who has no real credible, stuff, how does he manage to how's he stayed out of jail? How is he able to sustain himself? Why is he protected? Because the very powers that be, it's like Jimmy Savile, the one of the biggest dirtbags that ever existed in England. How was Jimmy Savile able to sexually abuse, rape, and murder children from orphanages and hospitals for all those years? Why was Jimmy Savile able to do that? Why did Jimmy Savile have his Top of the Pops, TV series? Why did BBC allow a known pedophile to exist within their ranks for over 30 years? Imagine the amount of children he raped and murdered. You know, why was Jimmy Savile allowed to do that? Because Jimmy Savile was just such a fabulous, charismatic serial rapist and so, charismatic, cool, and fabulous. No, he first time you see the guy, you're like, ew, my skin's crawling. Jimmy Savile was best friends with the royal family. He was best friends with Margaret Thatcher. He went to every Christmas he went to Margaret Thatcher's place. So
Mm.
these guys, like the Hampstead father and Florence and Jimmy Savile, and Jimmy Savile had, I guess, more going on than, the Hampstead father and Florence. But they're protected, they're endorsed because ritual abuse and pedophilia and adrenochrome, whatever it is, there there are the, there are these high level Luciferians, whether they're royal family or whatever they are, and they will protect those people. And I think that's the case of this Hampstead father, because the guy should be in jail. The guy should have had to, answer for what these kids said, or no, he never has. He just says everyone's crazy, which is always the easiest defense, right? All these people are crazy.
Yeah, well,
They're
this,
trying to malign me and hurt me. I'm just an innocent father.
yeah.
My ex-wife has made all this up and forced the children to say that. They said that to me when I put my son on tape. They said I made my son tell me what he told me. And if you listen to the tape, and I still have it, and by the way, I made over 300 copies of that original microcassette tape. I had every single copy of that microcassette, um, tape stolen. I think I know I have one real copy left, the old cassette, because it was 95 when this happened. So I have one old cassette, and then we have the original micro cassette. That's all I've got left. I've had safety boxes, break-ins, storage spaces, friends' houses where I hid the tapes. All of it has been located and stolen.
Hmm. Yeah. Well, this is the thing that when I was interviewing Julia Davis, and that was when you were out in not in Victoria, wherever we were,
Oh yeah,
um,
New Denver, yeah.
wherever we were, but we were talking about Julia Davis, and you told me about the terror within. So I think it was you that introduced me to the story that we had just heard about that, and I interviewed her, and you see these people that just go from sort of like normal everyday folks working in their jobs, and she working on the border, and then you see where Brittany Murphy becomes involved. These Hollywood actors and various people. Brittany Murphy mysteriously dies. Her husband mysteriously dies. Her neighbor, the Julia Davis's neighbor mysteriously dies. The guy that took the footage of the Black Hawk helicopters, it's like, and things are, as you say, they're stolen, taken, and we go, oh, well, that could never happen. No, my place is secure. You think your place is secure? People worry about their webcams and their iPhones, and it's like, no, nothing is secure. Nothing in your life is secure. If somebody really wants it, they'll get it. Whether
Yeah.
it's in your safety deposit box or whatever it is. And I've seen just a tiny, tiny bit of that. Even on my YouTube channel, I get, I'll be demonetized, and then they're going to take away super chat, and they take away everything possible. And it's usually to do with money, which is why I think it's really important that we say, this is not the reason that we're doing it. They think that they can get people with money. So when you see people like Clinton and all these people that are making money and that have bought into that, you just go, I see. Those are the ones that have decided that it was worth selling your soul for, for the dollar. It's an exchange, and I'm sure you could have done that too. You could have probably turned it at some point and just gone, okay, fine, just
Well, I was told, forget about my kids or I'll never work again. And I just said, no, I'm not going to do that.
yeah,
It's that
yeah.
simple. It was never an option. But with the Hampstead kids, I think that because it is disturbing, it's hard for the general public, the average person, to go, well, wait a second, they were saying all this stuff about their father, and then they're seeing it like a year and a half later, and everything's fine, and they're laughing with their dad and stuff. And knowing what I know, yeah, yeah, of course. That's
So
what happens when you're a child that's been ritually abused and has alters. That's what happens when this guy's obviously he was providing children for the royal family or the Duke and Duchess or whoever the heck he was connected to. He's just a low level nothing guy, but uh, he was probably absolutely evil and ruthless, and he was providing them children. So he's been protected at every step of the way.
I think people have such a hard time with this, and I get it. People go, "Oh, you're not a royal watcher." Well, it's not about being a royal watcher. It's like, basically, when I look at people who are in positions of power, or who are in positions of holding all the wealth or whatever it is, I just look at them differently. It's not nothing to do. Oh, it must be that you're jealous. Oh yeah, that must be it. No, I just think when you are in those kind of echelons, you have a lot to protect, and I think it's true of anybody, even if you know somebody that has some money. They're often the ones that have the alarm systems and the extra security, and they're concerned about the stock market falling, and people who have money have something to lose. Some people who have power have something to lose, right? So we necessarily kind of look at them a little bit askance when we start to realize what some of those folks have been doing over the history of mankind. It's like,
Right.
it's
It's
not,
really frightening.
yeah,
And the sad thing is, after 23 years, and I don't get followed, I'm not under surveillance 24/7 anymore. I mean, I go through stuff online, and most stuff I do, like Jim and Angie's site will be closed down, and most stuff I do is tampered with and messed with. But I don't go through the kind of harassment surveillance I once did, by any stretch of the imagination. But they've taken everything from me, and it's like I have nothing to gain at this point. For I mean, I would, I'm not telling, I'm not telling some story so I can gain a whole bunch of public awareness or popularity. I'm doing it because I'm 61 years old. I don't know how much longer I've got, and it's like, yeah, simply put, they messed with my kids. And I know what these people are. I know what Jimmy Savile is. I know what these people do. And it's just not a joke. And Florence was mixed up in a orphanage in Cambodia. And when I did a radio show with Sonia from the Truther Girls, I mentioned she had this orphanage, the most uncaring person in the world, that if my son fell down a flight of stairs, Florence would just turn away and walk away, and couldn't deal with it. So I had to be the caregiver. I mean, she could not pick Morgan up and put a bandage on his knee, right? She was afraid of picking him up and putting the bandage on his knee. But my mother and sister and everyone around, oh, there's so much, children are so much better with their mother. Are you kidding me? My God.
right.
Like, I've seen all this stuff unravel and unfold, and I'm just, I have nothing to gain from speaking the truth. I'm just going to speak the truth because of my children and other children like them, including those kids in Hampstead. And I don't believe those kids in Hampstead were coached by their mother and their stepdad to tell some crazy story, because it just rings too true. And those kids don't look like they're lying when they're relating to, having their father's hand around their hand when they held the knife, and their father, forced them to kill, I think it was another child or whatever, right? I hate to say it, but that's kind of typical in this ritual abuse stuff.
Well, that's why people don't want to tune in. They don't want to, or why they tune out is the more the thing is like, oh, yeah, I don't want to hear about
Well,
that.
that's their problem, isn't it? I mean, Joni, ultimately, it's like we all have to answer to God. We all have to try to, we've all, I'm certainly not sinless or perfect, but like, if you're gonna just go along with things for the sake of making it easier on your life, you're a loser. Like, you're a loser. Anyone listening that knows of a pedophile in the neighborhood, or someone that's doing something, and you're just going to keep your mouth shut because that person's a politician or a doctor or a lawyer or someone in a position of power, and so you're just going to be quiet because you want to keep your nice little 2-car garage house and keep living. This was the biggest problem with Jimmy Savile. They asked the nurses in these orphanages and children's hospitals, why didn't, remember, Kim, why didn't any of you come out and tell us about Jimmy Savile while he was alive and what he was doing? Their excuse was, we didn't want to jeopardize our job.
Yeah, yeah. No, of course we wouldn't want to do
Are
that.
you kidding?
Well,
I would go live on the street if I could like expose a guy like Jimmy Savile.
Well, what I think is happening is it's not even the frog in the pot thing, but we look at what's happening even with the election and with people who have the temerity to wear a hat that doesn't go along with mainstream narrative, and what's happening to them. And it's not just that they're getting booed off the stage or that their careers are being ruined or whatever. They're being socked in the face. I mean, there's so many lies that are being perpetrated by those people. And I'm not going to say this side or that side. It has nothing to do with sides. It has to do with you're either for the truth and you're for the things that can stand on their own, or you are perpetrating a lie. And what I don't understand is the people that are going along with the lie either. Whether, no matter what size of lie, what they're talking, and it starts with these little things. I think Dr. Judy, maybe you were involved in some of the shows, but at the beginning of the year, but we were
I
talking.
love Dr. Judy.
Well, I know.
Dr. Judy has risked everything, and all Dr. Judy did, and she's never taken a stand about who's behind 9/11. You notice that? She never says it's this evil banking family, or she doesn't take a stand on any of that. All she's ever done is presented her evidence.
Yeah, because
Don't you agree?
well, she doesn't want to muddy the waters, and that's to me like it's discipline right there to be able to, just to look at the evidence, see where it takes you, and forget about the rest of the stuff. Everybody wants
Right.
to figure out who done it and all the rest of it, and that's fine if you have all your ducks in a row. I think we're going to figure out pretty much who done it. I think if we look at what's happening now and we see all the players that are in action right now on the board, and you take a look at what was happening in 2001, guess what? Same people. Same,
Yeah.
the board is even the same. It's like they're wearing the same colors, and I see how easy it is for people to be duped by just having someone say, I think we just want to believe that, those folks on CNN, they would never tell a lie. I've had people say that. Why would they lie? And then you got to go back into this whole thing of, do you know any liars? Like you got to put it into some context that they can understand. Why would anybody lie?
Well, yeah, let me ask you something, and your audience will probably hate this. But I think you and I kind of concur on our attitude towards it. What's your opinion now on abortion?
Well, I've always been pro-life.
Me too.
It's
I've
it,
never always been pro-life though. So I've never been 100% Christian. I am now, but I wasn't. I was New Age. And I used to think, abortion was okay, especially when some girlfriend from Sweden comes to visit me in New York, gets pregnant. It's like, oh, it's just so much easier if she has an abortion. So I'm exactly the kind of dirtbag that I can't stand now. So I can admit that.
sorry,
No,
and
but I
and
can admit that,
but I'm
I can
just saying,
admit, oh, so much easier just to get rid of that
yeah,
little embryo.
yeah.
Well, I don't feel like that anymore. And anyone listening, you really start researching when a child is considered what a living a thing, a human. These laws regarding abortion, man, we all got duped on that. And how many people? Oh, cool. Kim's just showing me something about yeah. These five senators up for re-election voted to keep abortions legal up to birth. Up to
Up to
birth.
birth.
Child's
Up
completely able
to
to live
birth.
Isn't it
And
outside
any
the
insane?
woman's
moron
body.
out there listening to this, and you're a vegan, oh, and you eat such healthy food and you won't kill an animal. Yeah, really? But you support abortion? I guess the argument can be made if a woman's raped by some criminal and she doesn't want that child. I guess if the child's got complications, you can argue there's an abortion, but
You do it before they're ready to be.
yeah,
born,
you
for
don't
God's
do it
sakes.
at third term and
When the
stuff.
child's
Come
capable of
on.
living
And
outside
but
the
look how we
body.
all went along with that. I went along with it.
Oh,
Many of us did, right?
everyone goes along with it. And I full disclosure. I mean, I did have just such a thing happen. It wasn't quite, wasn't a violent thing, but I was pregnant when I was 14. Maybe 15, I can't remember. But anyway, I think I had the abortion when I was 15. But, it wasn't my choice. It was my
Wow, you
parents'
never
choice.
told me this before.
No, and the thing is that I've probably told my audience, I don't know, but what I do is I try and keep it. I actually told some people, some young girls when I was quite a bit younger. We were at a summer camp, and these girls were pretty out there, right? And I decided that it was really, I just felt like God was telling me that I should be telling this story. And, I just feel like, I'm forgiven. And I also, even at that time, I was pro-life, but knowing very little about what being pro-life was. But what really affected me was when I had my first child, because
Yeah.
you feel the baby move, and you just go, hey, that's like 4 months into the pregnancy, right? And so what I ask people now before I'll have a discussion with them is I just say to them, okay, so can you tell me where you think life begins, right? Just so that we can have a level playing field. And then I really don't want to have a debate with someone who hasn't decided where life begins. Like I just feel like they're so dumbed down that I can't possibly begin, because they're just going to keep moving
Yeah.
they're going to keep moving the chess pieces until they
I
line up
know.
with their thinking, right? So you got
I
to
know.
pin people down a little bit beforehand, like,
But
okay,
you can, I'm sorry to say, but you can kind of ascertain and judge whether this person is someone you even want to continue talking with.
well, that's it. And I'm sorry, but I've only got limited time in my life. And
Right.
if all you want to do is argue with me, then, that's really not something that I want to do. But there's lots of people who would love to argue with you. So go ahead. But I even did this with my ex-mother-in-law. You can imagine how well it went over. But she is a nurse, and we got discussing it. And so, that was just, rather than being rude, as I can be, I just said, before we go down that road, can I just ask you where you think life begins? You're a nurse, give people the honor they're due. I don't,
Right.
and I'm not saying it sarcastically. I'm assuming everybody has thought about these things and that they have an idea and opinion. Then we can have a conversation. But when somebody
And
won't,
what I'm really curious. What did she say?
well, I don't know.
Oh,
Is what most people will say is, I don't know. I haven't decided. I haven't decided, as though it's your decision. Now, when you decide, that's when life begins. Okay, so you've got all the control in the world, but that's okay. Even if that was the rationale, like, I haven't decided. So, you just go, well, you're a nurse and you've gone through all this stuff, and, you've had kids. And so I don't think we have to be rude to one another. I don't think, and I'm trying to seriously get a response out of people. I want to know where they stand, right? So that we can actually have a discussion that will go somewhere. And I don't bring up the fact that I've had an abortion, or that most people
right.
go, oh, look, she's had 6 kids. She must be Catholic. She must not believe in,
Right. And they
and
try to rationalize and find reasons to rationalize why you think the way you do,
exactly. And
instead of instead of looking in the mirror and saying, "Wait a second. She makes like this doesn't it's not right."
yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
it's really interesting. It's as funny as when I used to do wedding photography and I was quite young, and I'd be at these, very posh events, as the photographer, and you'd sit down with, they'd say, oh, come on over, have some dinner, and then they'd tell you what it'll be like when you have kids, right? And at the time I had 4, but I just would never mention it because I loved hearing from people when
Ah,
they don't know who you are, because they have
yeah.
so much advice, so much bloody advice to
Wow,
mete out.
yeah.
And so,
You're a great mom. I thought about you a lot lately.
well,
You are. Even if your kids have gone this way, gone that way. Oh man, your kids love you. You're a great mom. You've done everything for your kids. You
well,
really have in a way.
Well, you're kind, and I feel, like it did take up a huge swath of my life to be dedicated to that, and I never regret a moment of it. But we can't have any expectations. I decided to get married to a narcissist, and narcissist. I think this is at the heart of so much of this. Well, Hollywood actors. I mean, really, if you want to find a narcissist, go
Go to Hollywood.
go to Hollywood, and so it doesn't surprise me that people that are on the stage, or that are in front of the camera, or even people that are in front of a mic, have enough of an ego going that they really feel like, they're God's gift to whatever
I
world.
worry if I worry if I'm a narcissist.
Well, I was going to mention something, Stephen, but
No, but I actually do. I do question myself.
You are.
Kim
by the
says
way,
I
that's
am.
Kim. And hi, Kim. I don't know if Kim can even hear us, but that's Kim. And
No,
you
she
could,
can't. But I
uh,
do. I question it. Like why did I ever want to be an actor? Like, and then someone told me yesterday I was told from this actor guy who's an East Coaster guy, like from Halifax or Nova Scotia, kind of salt of the earth type guy, has a hunting cabin, doesn't like store-bought meat, but he'll kill a deer in the woods. And I personally don't have a problem with that.
no.
If you're a hunter and you're not gonna, like, isn't it so convenient that you go to the grocery store and buy beef? But if it's named cow, or if it's named, if it's got like, oh, it's so much easier just to buy this prepackaged food of some commercially farmed animal that's been given steroids and is just treated like crap and then chopped up so that we can ingest it. It's like, and I really think ultimately, man, I wish I could just go completely vegan again, like, or not, at least eat a vegetarian, not eat meat. Unless I hunt it myself, I really don't think it's right to eat it.
Well, it's
And if
interesting
the
because
deer happens to cross my line and I've got a rifle and I'm out in the woods, well, maybe God, for whatever reason, that deer crossed my line, crossed my eye, and his numbers up. But going to the convenient supermarket and buying your food, and oh, but you don't want to know that it's a cow and that it's a pig. It's
yeah,
always beef or
yeah,
it's pork. Come on, man.
yeah.
Call
But
us,
I have to
call it what
say,
it is, right?
someone in the chat saying that vegans are under mind control, but I think they may be looking at it as veganism, like any ism. I think people are under some sort of mind control. If we're under the control of God's mind, I guess that's a whole
Anyway,
different
this
thing.
guy told me,
But
this actor guy told me that if you're an actor and you have an opinion about, he knew some actor guy that was up for a, because I'm completely blacklisted. I can't even do voice work. I'm fired. And it's because they're afraid of what I'll say. But I
hey,
was the number one voice guy in Montreal.
I was going to
So
ask
I
you
did
to
major campaigns. I did American campaigns. I still could do voice work, even though I was
can you
blacklisted as an actor.
can you
Now
do
I'm done.
Subway? Can you do Subway?
Subway, eat fresh.
Thanks. And by the way, folks may not know this, but you are the voice of David. What's his face? Sorry.
David Seraph, yeah.
In
David Seraph, it took me 6 months of doing David Seraph for Human Revolution before I realized, oh my God, this show's all about transhumanism. Transhumanisms, we're not doing transhumanism so that we can all live healthier, better lives. No, it's just so the elites, the deletes, can extend their life as long as possible. They can drink baby's blood. They can ingest adrenochrome. Yeah, just let's keep those elites as long. So George Bush can live to be 120. You know what I mean? Because we just need George Bush
yeah.
to stick around so long.
Well, it
But
really
no, the thing is, this actor guy said that he knew an actor, and the guy had said something about like GMO food, processed food, and how bad it is. And he was up for a McDonald's commercial voiceover, right?
uh-huh.
Well,
Yeah.
they went on his social media and they found out that he'd posted something on Facebook about GMOs. McDonald's wouldn't hire him. So now what that's telling me is that all actors, and actors for the most part, not all, but most, are really insecure. I don't care if they're Gerald Butler or whatever that guy's name is. I don't care how macho they appear in their movies. They all just want to be loved. They all want to be acknowledged for being something. And I probably fall into that category too, with my dysfunctional family and whatever need I had. But if you speak out about GMOs, guess what? McDonald's is going to go to your Facebook, or the advertising agency is. They're going to find out that you don't like GMO foods. And guess what? You're not doing a McDonald's commercial.
Can I get
Mm-hmm.
credit card?
Yeah, it's
How do you like that?
well, this is the
If you
world.
speak out against Hillary Clinton, you don't even have to be a Trump supporter. But if you speak out against Hillary Clinton in Hollywood or say anything on a Facebook, a social media page, you're done.
That's what I love about James Woods. You don't see him in
James
a
Woods is never going to probably work
he's
again as
never
an
going to work
actor.
again. No, but it's what I love is that he got to a place, a pinnacle, as it were. I mean, he wasn't, he was probably A minus list, right? But
Yeah,
uh,
no, he was great though. Yeah, he was
he had
starring
enough.
in movies with De Niro and stuff like that. Yeah, I always thought he was a dirtbag, but he's not such a dirtbag after all.
No, he's very outspoken. I love it. Here comes the children. I don't know if people saw that tweet, but I just love that tweet. He says so sarcastic, but it's got pictures of the migrants beating down the fences at the Mexican border. Here come the children. It's just like they're just the most perfect tweet I've ever seen. But
He's got a super high IQ, James Woods.
well, no
I've met
doubt.
him. No, he's got an IQ that's like off the charts, like seriously off the charts. Like he's got a super super high IQ. He just happens to be an actor, but his IQ is like no, it is. It's
He's an actor,
astronomical
but no, it's just
apparently.
the way you said that. He happens to be an actor, but he has a high IQ. And
Well, you don't think of actors as like, oh my God, we've got these huge IQs.
no, it's not the first thing that comes to mind because I think that part of it, whether it is the idea that people have been dumbed down or just that they have decided not to say anything, I don't think somebody with a higher IQ can be quiet, which is why you're not an actor anymore. I mean, people that have any kind of smarts going on you can't be quiet. You can't. And the other thing is, I really believe that if you have a high IQ and you have any sense of the truth at all, you really will speak the truth. Like it doesn't go by the boards, where you just go, just I know what the truth is. But I'm not saying that people with high
Yeah,
IQ are.
wouldn't you hate to be the person that's got some job and it's like, I don't want to rock the boat and I'll just keep my, I'll just keep my mouth shut because I don't want to jeopardize, my position or
Oh, I had a job like that, and I had to be bonded.
yeah, but so many
And
people do that.
yeah,
It's like
so many
I
people do.
can't speak out because, oh, this or that, and meanwhile, it's like they're not starving to death in Africa. They're not getting like shell shocked in Palestine or anything. These are people that live in the suburbs, have a nice house with two cars. It's like, oh, I don't want to jeopardize my position. I can't speak out.
Yeah,
I
no,
feel bad for those people. I don't even know how those people, I don't know how they drink a glass of water. I don't know how they don't choke to death. Like, wow, that's your life, buddy or woman or whoever. It's like, wow, you got to keep your mouth shut because, and then they justify it, but I don't want my children to be affected. Yeah, what about all the other children? You know,
well, and
like your little neighborhood and your little family, really?
your
You
children will
think
be
you're
affected.
doing the right thing, do you?
Yeah, it's only a matter of time. We're here for a short time. I think we have the egos to think that we're going to be here to change the world into the future. But already it's other people's world, and those people are the ones that we see. A lot of them aren't doing that, but they're being controlled by this narrative. Like somebody was saying, oh, there's a lot of young folks that are going out to vote for the first time, and they're really motivated. They're all going to be voting for the Democrats, and I'm going, yeah, that's probably true. That's probably true, which is a sad statement. Just because you're young, you're probably going to vote for the Democrats. But
Why do people ignore what Hillary? I don't even care about Republican Democrats. I feel they're both kind of like messed up.
oh, sure,
But
sure,
why are people so unwilling to look into Hillary Clinton and Bill Clinton's past and what the Clinton Foundation is?
because
Like, why are they?
they don't want to turn up dead. I mean, they don't want to have one of those nice little what is it, the scarf around the neck concept. Now you got a scarf around your neck and you're hanging from a doorknob like Anthony Bourdain. Apparently that's their MO these days. So I
Oh,
mean,
they did that. They do that repeatedly. They did it with that fabulous. I love that guy, the Cornell guy. Do you know Cornell, the singer?
No. Oh, but
No,
Chris Cornell.
yeah,
Chris.
Chris Cornell, and
Yeah.
then Michael Hutchence years ago. He was having an affair with Bob Geldof's wife,
Of
and
course.
I knew a girl that dated Hutchence because I had a brief kind of fling with her. Hutchins wasn't 100% a bad guy, but he was a bit of a cokehead and a rock star guy, right? But he's messing around with Sir Bob Geldof's wife that left him.
Hmm.
And it's same thing. It's the doorknob suicide. These doorknob suicides, and yet the general public can't seem to get their head around. Oh, another doorknob suicide.
That's what
Uh,
I love about my brother. You met my brother. We won't say his name, but
is he
just
the guy when he was redoing his basement?
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
he's great. Yeah,
Yeah,
that guy's great.
and he's totally on to the whole thing. And it's really interesting how things have, he's just kind of come out of this like closet of some sort that he's never been in the closet with his opinion, but he definitely is he just can't stand the whole Clinton thing. But the things that he posts, and then my other brother will do all these
He's not with that same girl, woman, is he?
no, well, you'll be, this is not something we should necessarily be
I
discussing
know you
on
can
here,
cut this out if you
but
want.
no, it's kind of interesting because, yeah, she's a piece of work. He's not in that situation. We'll talk about it off air sometime,
Okay, because
but
I couldn't stand her. I'm just going to say that.
well, I'm glad that you've said that. For the record, at least,
I
I think
couldn't stand her.
there'd be
I
some
thought your brother was so great and cool.
yeah.
Yeah,
And then you
anyway,
got
okay.
yeah. So yeah, it's interesting, but I think a lot of it has to do with too that he just came to a certain point where he's just going to speak his mind, and I can only imagine how that would be for somebody who had to live in the same house with him.
And
Um,
wasn't she a lawyer or something?
she was, and
Yeah.
yeah, she's
Funny how that works out, isn't it?
funny how that works out. Yeah, yeah. So, well, one thing about my family I have to say is, and I include myself in this, is we get ourselves into these situations where we don't end up the winners when it comes to the financial end of things, or where
Yeah.
we put our heart and soul into something, or in his case, he renovated the whole house, and and we're entitled to all these things. People say, "Oh, you're entitled," and I hate that word. I hate entitlement.
Yeah.
So it's just like, I may very well be entitled, but I'm not going to be pursuing that in a court of law, And it's, so we end up with these people that totally rip us off. But, I got to give him full credit because he just carries on. And
Good for him, man.
hmm hmm
Anyway, should we cut this short, or we
I
have we
think,
done it pretty much, you think?
I
Or
think we've done it, and we haven't necessarily covered all the stuff, but I think what we've done is we've introduced the whole concept. And if anybody's been looking at the
I just want to
Hampstead,
introduce doubt for anyone that believes these Hampstead kids. Oh, look, they're so friendly with their dad. You don't understand what ritual abuse is. And see, I've experienced it firsthand with my own children. So my ex-wife tried to drown a kitten, an 8-week-old kitten, in front of my kids. I didn't know what that was. And then she dropped it on a metal slab. It's dead anyway. And it took me years to realize, oh my God, she was intentionally drowning the kid. They make a child bond with a small animal, and then they either murder the animal in front of the children, or they make the child murder their animal that they have now bonded with. That's very typical programming. And
right?
and people don't get what programming is. I know what programming is.
Yeah.
It hurts my heart to even think of some of the things that I overlooked, because I didn't know, right? I didn't know. I had no reference.
No,
But
and
when children are programmed, that I'm not saying it excuses, but it certainly explains a lot about the children being in a room with this dirtbag father who's very protected, even though he's a completely crappy actor that's never done anything. Like
right.
his profession is as an actor. He never did anything.
Yeah.
And yet he's got money to travel the world. That alone should tell you something.
Well,
And
we
those,
learned this early on in life. We know if you have no visible means of income, we called it, and you see people doing things like buying a car or going around the world or whatever, you got to ask some questions. I knew that when I was 14 years old because I hung out with, and I got to say, I didn't hang out with the most savory people at that age, and I shouldn't have been doing that. But I'm just letting you know that these people educated me in that. Like if you see somebody,
right,
they're probably a drug dealer, right? A fellow
right,
drug
or
dealer.
something, yeah, or a
And so
child
that's,
trafficker.
well, this is what the cops are looking for when they're actually looking for something. It's not like they don't recognize the signs. They see some kid who's like 15 or 16 years old, especially in those days when there was no other possibility. Like you weren't getting your money, becoming Mark Zuckerberg or some other framed up, pseudo entrepreneur. But that kid is probably selling dope, and that was what these dope dealers that I hung around with would tell me about, so that I could actually not, not tip them off. Like,
What your audience may not know is that there's been guys that worked in the London Police Department in London, England, that knew about pedophilia and they started investigating it. And this one cop in particular, and I can't remember his name, but he was outraged and he dug on his own. He dug and dug and dug and dug. And he sounds like a really decent guy. Well, guess what? He loses his position. He's told to shut up. He's told to go away. He gets demoted. In other words, the London police did not want to know because they were involved in protecting guys like the Hampstead kid's father.
yeah, yeah. Well,
And
there's a
most people think, oh, that's just impossible. No, it's absolutely not impossible.
well,
That's what happens.
this ties right in with what you were saying about why doesn't Hillary Clinton ever get prosecuted if it's happening with the London police? And are you talking about London, Ontario, or London,
No, London, England.
London, England? Because you take a look at a city that size, and then you take a look at the swamp, and you see somebody who's operating on that level in Washington, where pretty much everyone is corrupt. Apparently, I haven't been there, but every time I hear tell, it's like you would not believe. You think it's bad here. Well, you would not believe. I know it's happening on the streets of every city, so you can only imagine how people are enabling each other there. And man, it's like Seth Rich, do not look, don't go any farther.
Right.
You're gonna have some splaining to do. And
And
so
anyone looking into Pizzagate, it was also, they always use the same
mo
uh, vernacular or whatever.
oh
They always
vernacular.
say, oh, Hillary Clinton, these crazy conspiracy freaks say that Hillary Clinton was trafficking children in the basement of a pizza place. I don't think maybe in the very beginning, one idiot said that, but no one ever thought really that was what was going on. It was all about a a pizza place in Washington, and what it was connected to through the Podestas and different, factions, right?
Yeah.
So it was never about Hillary Clinton. Oh, she's got a table out and she's like selling kids at the, hey, give me $100. So I'll send you this
Sorry, I
kid.
shouldn't be laughing.
Like
It's
so ridiculous. It was always about this globalist, delete, child trafficking ring. It was never about Hillary Clinton selling kids out of a basement, but all mainstream, they always use that same narrative, that same, oh, these conspiracy nuts saying that Hillary Clinton's selling kids out of the basement. And that's what they do. They just completely insult us. And then dummies out there that believe mainstream or read their newspapers and listen to their news, they go, oh, yeah, these conspiracy people are crazy.
yeah.
Never even entertaining. Wow, this wasn't about a pizza place in Washington per se. This was about, wow, high level deletes that buy and sell children, kill children, and do a lot worse than that.
Well, of
Like,
course they do.
no,
Look, I think the very idea that going back to the abortion thing, and I know we were saying we were wrapping up, but I think this is really important because I've always felt that the indoctrination begins. Okay, this is my overarching idea. When we
Okay.
when we get rid of the idea that there's a sanctity of life, when we demean the sanctity of life overall, doesn't matter how we do it, whether it's kittens, whether it's abortion, what doesn't matter what it is,
Whether
we
it's porn.
exactly. So
Yeah.
whatever it is, and it has its, if you look back and see it, whether it's drugs or anything, it has its roots in a way of desanctifying, if you want to put it that way, life, right? So the whole abortion thing to me is an agenda where we go, certain people don't deserve to live, right? So we, oh yeah, yeah, right, and it's our right to choose, right? And so everybody's nodding their heads, and we start off, and then it's like the end of life issues where euthanasia, yes, some people, it's a quality of life, isn't it, right? It's a quality of life issue. So this is the way that we indoctrinate people, and all of us to some extent are. This is why I'm so strong on it, by saying, when do you think life begins, when do you think it ends, whatever,
Yeah.
because I want to see where somebody's coming from, how strong are their convictions to begin with, because then I'll know what I'm dealing with. If you haven't decided where life begins, or you haven't decided that porn is bad for your soul, or that killing a cat is a precursor to other activities, or even harming an animal. Like,
Right.
I remember when my ex-husband throwing a dog off a deck, and my niece, who is, only 4 years younger than me, but just being totally freaked out. And I was already in a place where I was going, yeah, well, he always does that. It's not,
Oh God. Yeah, I get it.
you
I
know,
know. I rationalize stuff too. I get it.
and so yeah, and to whatever, and you look back on it and you just go, I was being mind controlled into a place, and letting myself be mind controlled into a place where somebody was rationalizing throwing a dog off the deck. You don't Even if the dog has shat upon your floor, you
Who
know
cares?
you don't throw the dog off the deck.
Our,
And
our little Dormy shits on the floor almost every night because she's incontinent and she's 16 years old.
well, and but you see, that's the difference between someone with a conscience and somebody that doesn't. And you start to when you don't see the sanctity of life, of all life, that whether and I can see why people are vegetarians. I've
Me
done,
too.
I get all that stuff. I don't think, unless it's an ism, it's not a problem. But the thing is that we need to really analyze what this person is saying to us when they're starting to say, oh, I put the kitty in the dryer because it was really funny, ha ha ha. And I've had that said by a person I was living with, father of my children. It's like, no, no, no. In no world is that okay. In no world is it okay to put an animal in the dryer, or to put their head underwater. And so you start to see how normalized some of this stuff is, because they're willing to say it out loud, and they've been around people that are,
Do,
that same person was made to eat out of a dog dish, or at least they said they were. So, but anybody who would even say that, who would say that about their parents if it wasn't true? And then all of a
but
sudden,
abuse begets abuse. And even in your
exactly.
relationship with your ex-husband and my relationship with Florence, yeah, I got kind of whittled down, and you probably, it sounds like you did too. It's like you almost, in a smaller, and my family as well, like in a smaller way, you sort of, yeah, you rationalize things away actually there's no way to rationalize those things away.
No, and I don't think it's even, I'm just going to suggest, with me, it wasn't being worn down. I was just unsure of what to do at that point. And I think sometimes we're in these situations, like whether it's our parents or somebody we got married to, the father of our kids, whatever it is. And what's the choice? Do we tell the truth? Do we go out and find somebody to talk to and say, this is what's happening, which I now think is probably a pretty darn good idea, but there weren't the resources available then. So I'm glad we're having the conversation, and I'm glad that what we're doing is saying, if we know somebody that's capable of doing this supposedly small thing, you can see that it's a gateway to, and it's a gateway drug in a certain way to doing bigger things. They're small stepping stones. The Satanists that lived next door to my brother and sister-in-law when they first got married, killed their cat. So they had their eyes opened early on. That this, you may not agree with, you may not believe in what they believe in, but they're doing stuff because they believe in it.
Hey, you know what? I got to say this before I leave now.
Hmm.
But do you remember when your brother's horse, the head was cut off?
Well, no, it was another thing, but it was at the other end of the body. But yeah, I do remember that.
Oh, okay. That was very weird.
Oh well, they knew that too. They're Christians and they got it. They don't live. They moved.
They did?
Yeah, they moved, and I won't say where, but they that was they recognized what it was. It was a ritualistic. The animal was.
Absolutely, it was. I was at your place when that happened, I think.
Were you when they? Yeah,
Yeah, that was completely freaky.
and it came out in the paper. Um,
Yeah.
Yeah, it was, and really freaky for my sister-in-law, who is she works with animals, loves animals, and to have gone out into the barn and seen that, yeah, the animal was dead, but it was sodomized. We're talking about,
Oh, God, really?
yeah,
Oh, God.
something that they couldn't even really talk about, because they didn't want to say the words. And I think that's part of it, like even for me to just say it right now on air. But I think what I'm
Yeah.
trying to do is to tell anybody who wants to listen that if you think that people are wacky, people like me or people like Stephen, and I'm sure, my kids think I'm out of it in a lot of ways, but it's like, you have not experienced this, and I hope you never have to. But if you have, then you will go, there are people in the world that believe in this stuff and do this stuff. Whether you believe in it or not, they're doing it. So, you know, wrap your head
All
around that
right.
concept. Anyway,
Okay. Well, I
thank.
hope we bored your audience enough. Is there anybody left or are they all left now? They're just
There's a few people. And I think that they're interested in the subject. And what I'd love to do is to have a more interactive discussion. Because somebody was mentioning earlier, by the way, that actors are liars by their very nature, and I thought, that's a true thing. I may have misquoted a bit, but it is true. You're basically playing another role. So all these, I was raised in the theater, so I saw these insecure people that all of a sudden got this great persona on stage, and all of a sudden they're a whole different person. So and it's not that far away from being DID. Dissociative
yeah, the only thing I'll argue on that
person.
is that if you're really committed, like I was, to method acting, then you try to find the truth inside yourself that relates to the character.
Mm-hmm.
So instead of just standing there lying, you're trying to find a part of yourself, and this is kind of diabolical in some ways, and it's kind of good in some ways. If you're playing a serial killer, you have to find the part of yourself inside of you that could be that serial killer, right? So you're not just grandstanding, lying, but you're excavating your soul to find a part of you that's capable of doing that.
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
yeah, it gets yeah, it's kind of weird.
Well,
I don't think. I mean, De Niro's an awful guy, Robert De Niro, but he was a great actor, especially when he worked with Scorsese. And De Niro isn't the kind of big braggart type guy necessarily. He's the guy that gets a hold of his character and commits to it. So yeah, the lying thing is kind of more, I think it's crappier actors are just, oh, you look what a great liar he is. But they're
well,
not living it. They're not inhabiting that character.
I think the problem with someone like De Niro, like a lot of people, like you think about some of these people that have never done anything other than acting, and they've done really well at it. Meryl Streep, all these different people that are in La La Land, and that's all I can think is that they're going along with the program. They've been trained into it.
Yeah, and
It's not.
great big deal. So you're an actor that's good at it. Like big deal.
Yeah,
What
yeah,
have you
no,
really done?
all I'm doing is sort of looking at it from the point of view of if you've been that way all your life and you've been surrounded by people that think you're swell and you've never
Right.
had
I know.
anything but that, like De Niro and Streep. I'm just thinking of a couple of people who have come out as being absolute Trump haters and da 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 da,
No, you're
and
absolutely
and
right.
Streisand and all these people, like they've done ever since we were little kids. They have been doing this. They've been doing what they do. The Stones, all these people, they've got nothing really to lose, and they've been surrounded. They don't have a real
By ass
life.
kissers.
They by ass kissers, just like Michael Jackson, and so they never get people coming to them like real people that just go, you know what, you're off, you're way off base. Like what?
Absolutely. I admire the homeless guy that's rescuing animals more than like any actor that's like, oh, I'm so big on myself because everyone tells me how important I am.
Right.
It's got to be some plan from the deletes to like, push guys like Brad Pitt into the public eye, and everyone worships a movie star. Why? What have they done? What have they done for the humanitarian effort? Nothing.
Oh,
And then
they
they all have
come
phony
on.
charities.
He adopted a baby from some. It's the old adopt a black baby, adopt a brown baby, and it's like I'm not racist, no, but these are poor little waifs that I need. It's like, sorry, but I just feel like there's just the hypocrisy is, and it used to be a Saturday Night Live piece. You were allowed to sort of mock certain things like that. Now, of course, we're
You can't
considered
do
to be
that.
we can't possibly do that, but it's like that's what you do as a do-gooder. To me that's yeah, that doesn't fall under the general heading. People who are do-gooders are the ones that are out there in like your homeless guy in obscurity, right? They're just doing it whether they get the acknowledgement or not. You don't parade people out in front of the National Enquirer to
Right.
show how great you are. So on that very convoluted note.
Tell your audience that Brad Pitt was a nice guy, but as boring as a post and dumb as a post. And honestly, like Brad Pitt's like this big movie star. Why? And why, like,
Because he was
what is
really
he worth?
cute.
800
Thelma and
million or
Louise.
something?
Thelma and
It's just
Louise.
ridiculous.
I remember when I saw him in Thelma and Louise, and I just said, "Oh, he's so cute," because I think he was probably just same age or just a bit younger or something. But I think it's that generation of people, the Thelma and
Yeah.
Louise gang that, and then they sort of went, "Oh, anything he's in, I'll watch," and then and then he just became an average kind of middle-aged guy. But so
Kim can't stand him.
well,
I didn't have any big problem with him, but he's very weak. He
Kim
couldn't
gets
talk
it.
to Redford. Redford was trying to make him act like Redford, right? And Brad Pitt would come home and back to the motel and complain. And I was like, well, you got to get a hold of Bob, sit him down, and tell him, no, I don't want to do it like that. But
Yeah.
no, he didn't have any no backbone. So
Yeah.
sorry,
But
but
you and Bob,
that
you
should
and
speak volumes. Brad
see,
Pitt does not have a backbone.
so if
Look
you
at
know
his
nothing
brother
else,
Lester
you
plays
folks in the
Sanchez.
audience, he knows Robert Redford as Bob, and so
Oh yeah,
that's all
sorry
we
about that.
that's all we
Yeah.
really need to know about Stephen. I know
Yeah,
Stephen as Steve.
yeah, name dropping. I used Bob instead of Mr. Redford. Oh, geez.
Okay, well we're just gonna wrap up, and you know what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna play the little piece that we made probably in 2013. I'm gonna say it was a long time ago, and it has Dr. Judy in it as well. It's the little intro that
Oh,
we had
great.
to 357, which is the show that
Okay.
it's always like we're just not the kind of people that can put on a show every week. We're just not that kind of group. But it was a great show when we were doing it, and it was three of us. We're all born in the same year. Guess what year? And we called it 357.
Have you talked to her lately,
I
Dr. Judy?
I do talk to her quite often. We haven't
Okay.
we haven't done
It's just that I
shows.
got this job washing dishes, so I can't really do stuff on the weekends anymore, on Saturdays.
Well, it would be fun to get back to doing
Yeah, it
357.
would. I
Yeah,
miss her, man. I really do.
I
And I
do
love
too.
that she's so matter of fact and like the evidence speaks for itself. The evidence, the evidence. and the amount of slack she has taken for that. And I do see more and more people coming around to, oh, Dr. Judy Wood, she wrote this book. Like there are people still coming out about it, you know?
Oh yeah,
And
she sells. It's amazing because I actually send out books sometimes, and anyway, but I know how many books she sells, continuing to sell, and I just
good.
think that's a great indication. But yeah, she's busy. She's doing a lot of stuff, and we chat, but we haven't done a show lately. But I like to let people know that she's doing just fine. And she's enjoying her life. And the main thing, that's what I want. It's like, why are we doing all this stuff anyway? So that we can enjoy our life, right? And I just think it's great that someone like her, that's why I never pressure people to come on to shows, because I just go, these are people that have done enough already. They've done a lot for me. They've done a lot for everybody. And it's just like, enjoy yourself. Just enjoy yourself. And that's what I say to you too. You've gone through enough. You need to I'm glad that you and Cam are just able to enjoy yourself. And it's, even if you're washing dishes, and isn't that the way though?
Yeah, I don't mind it. It's actually great. And I've got a grandson, my Kim's daughter had a child, so we're the grandparents, and that's kind of great. And,
That is great.
I'm still here, like they didn't
There's
kill me off. I guess they just, I don't know what, I don't know. I don't know where any of that fits in, but
Well, they got
anyway, thanks so much
bigger
for
fish to
having
fry.
me on.
Well, thanks so much for being here. And we're going to end up here with our little tribute to those people of our generation. And that.
Okay.
And so, yeah, I'll talk to you soon. Okay. Thanks a lot,
Okay, I
Stephen.
love you, Joni.
Love
Bye.
you too, Stephen. Bye-bye. Oops.
She's hilarious.
Whoops, you're still on the air. Still in the air. Just a second. Let's just go. Okay. Let's just turn that off. I'm not able to. Let's see what we're doing here. Sorry, guys. Tinkering around here. Yeah, how do you shut it down? That's always a good question. Shut it down. Okay, I'm trying to get my media source here. Oh, you know what? It's because I haven't got it. Okay, there we go. Let's turn.
Oh, what? Do an intro for 357. I'm going to introduce you guys. Just pretend I'm a newscaster or some really hokey, phony interviewer, and you're on like we're on the alternative news red carpet, and I'm dressed in a really ill-fitting tuxedo kind of thing.
It's got to be velvet.
Okay. Well, welcome. Hello, ladies, and aren't we lucky? Joni's here.
That's a lovely suit you're wearing, Stephen. I love that velvet. It's beautiful.
Yeah, well, it's crushed velvet. I've gotten stepped on a lot in life. And over here we have, this is remarkable. You rode your bike here. That's very, very energetic of you, considering the heavy shoulders I'm sure that you must have. Welcome, Dr. Judy Wood.
I'm still catching my breath.
Yeah, well, you've been pedaling, I'm sure, for quite a while. You were down at the Motel 6, is the information that I... Was it the Days Inn? Yeah, well, maybe we were mistaken. But anyway, this is so great that you guys are both here. I wanted to let the audience know that we're going to be doing a show, the three of us, called the 357 Show. And it'll only make sense when you listen in. It's going to be a character-driven media. Take it away, Joni. Yeah, anyway, I'm going to go take my makeup off.
Oh, okay.